I love the way we just sit here.
Everything's connected. Now, good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Cooke and Craig Capilla, for being here. This is another round of our agent e-learning webinar series. Today's topic is what's next for agents and appraisers. Really quickly, I'm just going to give a high-level run-through of what we're going to cover today. I'm going to pass it over to Candy and Craig, and we're going to get started. We're going to quickly debrief what happened at the NAR NXT Conference. We're going to do a forecast of what's ahead for agents and appraisers amid everything changing with UAD 3.6. We're 1 year past the class action settlement enactment, and we're going to discuss briefly, what is changing with regard to NAR's policy and also some local MLS changes thereof. Lastly, we're going to touch on the Zillow and Compass lawsuit that's most recently come about and what that means for us out there. Thank you all for being here. Craig and Candy, good morning. Let's get started.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you.
So Craig and I are recovering from having been at this conference, and as NAR says, it's beyond just a conference. It's an experience.
And it was that.
It was.
It's only been a couple days here, but back at it again. So glad to join you this morning and talk about all this fun stuff, or I guess this afternoon for the folks on the East Coast watching this now. What are your initial thoughts of the NXT experience?
Craig, you and I briefly ran across each other. It was so packed in with things, and things were overlapping, and it was trying to get to everything. And we were spread out. Welcome to Texas, where we just don't understand distances. But I felt like it was a kind of a cool area to have it, because we could wander from hotel to hotel. We had restaurants close by where we could network. One of my big things with all of these meetings is to be able to network with people from basically all over the world. And the conversations were amazing. I think everybody's questioning where we're going right now. What are we doing? How are we going to handle all of this? Our business is changing. So what'd you think? You were wandering around.
That largely reflects, I think, my experience as well. To your point, pretty spread out. There was a whole heap of hotels involved, and then the convention center. So there was obviously the expo floor with all the vendors and the support stuff. It's always good for a good walkthrough here and there. Sort of once you've got that, I noticed long lines at the rescue puppy crate cave area. Otherwise, everything else was your typical group of vendors and whatnot. And then the content itself, the various sessions and seminars, I think were good and were reasonably well attended, which I know we're going to touch on attendance at some of these sessions a little bit later here. But overall, I think that was a good thing. I think that was a positive. To your point, lots of availability of nearby restaurants and bars and whatnot. So all weekend, I got in Thursday night and consistently saw these places packed with people from all over. When I go to these things, I'm doing a little bit of double duty, because not only do I have the appraisal and the valuation side, but I sit on the board of directors for a commercial overlay board up here in Illinois. So we had all the commercial broker and agent folks that I always have to run across there too. And they're very nationwide focused and internationally focused, quite frankly. So there's a whole heap of those people in town, because it is an international city. When you're in a place like Houston, obviously you've got the proximity of a massive airport, and you've got people coming in and out from all over the place. So I think endless networking opportunities and the like. And I think all of that was on the good side. The bad side, and I'll just come out and say it was a bad side, was there was a palpable apprehension, I think, across the attendees, no matter what area, what field you're in, that was very much a concern of what people are experiencing right now as they're going through these changes. And so I think for folks that were in attendance themselves, or for folks that have started to read articles and bulletins and whatnot coming out of there, I think the overall tone of everything is a lot of policy changes, a lot of changes considered, debated, discussed. Some were passed, some were enacted, some will be enacted as of January 1. Some didn't make the vote and didn't pass, but there's constant thought right now into whether or not there is going to be, or not whether there's going to be, but what there is going to be, because there's a lot happening all at once in relation to cooperating compensation commission questions, valuation related concerns. We've, last time we talked about UAD 3.6 newsflash. We're talking about it again because it's still a thing. And it's going to continue to be a thing for the foreseeable future. So I think that's a lot of what I experienced was uncertainty about all of those topics.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I cross back and forth between the agent broker side and the appraiser side and the education side. And everything seems to have been tossed in the air, and we're hoping that it all just runs along and we do okay and we have things go forward. I don't know. We have several things that we put on our list for today, and I kind of feel like they all tie together, Craig. We talk about what NAR thinks about MLS. And then we talk about UAD, which is MLS. And then we talk about compensation, which comes back to MLS. And we're all trying to adjust to this and figure out, how does this work? How do these pieces fit together? How do we make them all work?
Right. No, I think that's exactly right. I realized when we had sort of set the parameters of, all right, this is what we'll probably want to cover when we're done. Now let's go to this conference and see what information we can glean out of all of this. And then coming back and reflecting on it, I think we're realizing that all of this stuff really does interact. And it doesn't matter whether it's a question about NAR lawsuits, liability concerns, MLS concerns, or valuation changes and just changes to the lending stream, particularly in residential. All these things considered, all of these things are interactive to some extent, and people are wondering, just as much as last year when the settlement terms were really coming into fruition, people are now at the point where they're wondering, what does this really mean and how does this impact us? 1 year past that, people are really wondering, what does that mean and how does this really impact us? And we don't have all of that clarity yet anyway.
Right. So which one do we want to touch first? Oh, look, he's leaving me. He's just walking away.
So that just shows you how much I want to talk about this. I just walked away.
I know you walked away and you turned your mic off.
Exactly. Well, there was a horrible noise that popped up. So that's one of the fun things. I've come back to the beginning of winter effectively. And so now that strange things like to beep and make noises here. What do we want to touch on first? I would say let's go ahead. Should we dive into NAR policy changes?
Yes.
I kind of feel like we have to start.
I was going to tell you, that's the first one. And somebody says 3.6.
Yeah, well, don't worry. You're going to get a dose of that. I assure you.
Okay.
But because this is going to flow into that. So in the wake of this, there were a lot of policy meetings at this event as well. Various governing bodies within NAR met to discuss all sorts of policy proposals, some of which made it through the board of directors, and then there is the delegate body, and there's a governance structure. For those of you that are not all the way into the weeds on that, we're not going to bore you with that. Just suffice it to say, like any other form of government, there's way too many moving parts, and a whole lot of things have to happen in order for anything to happen. Okay.
Yes.
So at the end of the day, there were all sorts of proposals floated on all sorts of subjects. But one of the things that has been a recurring issue here throughout is this, again, fallout from the class action litigation and the impacts of the settlement terms and the applicability of the settlement terms. How are we dealing with compensation between agents and brokers? How are we dealing with cooperating compensation? Who's going to do what, how, and when? There was a proposal put forth that would have required realtors to disclose to their clients when they or their companies receive any compensation or referrals or anything. And the board of directors of NAR voted in favor of that proposal.
Absolutely.
And then the body of delegates shot it down. So it's not happening right now. Now, I will tell you that part of that is an argument really over wording, not concept. As a lawyer, I'm one of those nerds that lives in that space where words do matter. And we might have a great idea, but if we use the wrong words to get there, we wind up with a really bad idea. So there is some reluctance over making big sweeping changes if we don't have the wording exactly right. So I can tell you that's a part of the problem here sometimes. But there are other changes that have been approved and are forthcoming in all of this. I would say there is a big change coming to, what was it, Article 7, I believe, if I'm on point on that one. And that involves the actual policies relating to disclosure on this is another, it's not a transparency. The first one I was talking about is Article 6. Article 7 involves disclosure of compensation from more than one party, and to limit disclosure approval requirements to a realtor's client or clients, meaning now that we've got written agreements required in all circumstances before services are offered, right, on buy side, sell side, and the like, there has been argument, confusion, interpretation around, hey, if I've got an agreement with my client, do I have to show that agreement to you so that you know what agreement I have with my client before we come to an agreement? And the overall change on all of that is there is no obligation to disclose the terms of your agreement with your client. You are not obligated to disclose that to the other party and their representation. So that is a significant change that's hitting Article 7. There were also some additional changes here. Standards of Practice 3-4 is a fun one regarding the requirement to disclose a variable rate commission.
And most people didn't even understand what variable rate commission was.
Right. They didn't know what it was or how it worked. And the good news is, well, it's gone. So 3-4 has been deleted and people don't have to worry about that anymore. So it's good. If you didn't know what it was, now you never have to. And there was also SOP 17.
It's 17-4.
4. Okay. To ensure compliance with the tenets of the settlement agreement by reinforcing that compensation awarded in arbitration may not exceed the amount outlined within the terms of the buyer representation agreement. So that again codifies something that I think people were getting, they were getting the lay of the land for. But basically, if you end up in a proceeding, an arbitration proceeding, a dispute resolution proceeding about the representation, you can't earn more than what you had originally agreed to in your buyer's rep agreement that was maximum compensation. So that was sort of closing the door on an item that's been out there for a while. I mean, I think it shocks people. So you mean if I agree to, again, we're not going to violate antitrust laws here, so we're going to talk about bananas. Okay. If I'm getting Y bananas, I'm getting 3 bananas with my client, and the other side, for reasons unbeknownst to me, are offering greater
12 bananas.
12 whole bananas to pay me in cooperating compensation, I can only get the 3 bananas that I've agreed to. I can't go out there and get more than what my client has agreed to. Now, there's ways to address that so that you can open the door and get those bananas. But again, without that, you can't exceed what you've agreed to with your client. And to some extent, it's not too dissimilar to what I have here on my end. I'm a fiduciary for my clients when I represent them in my law practice. I have to clearly and distinctly establish in writing how I'm going to be compensated for the work I do. Is it going to be a percentage agreement? Is it going to be a fixed rate agreement? Is it going to be a flat fee agreement? I can choose to do things for X dollars. I can choose to do things for Y dollars per hour, or I can take Z percentage if we're doing something with a recovery on all of this. All of that has to be clearly established in the front of everything here in order for this to be legal going forward. And that's effective as of last year. A lot of the policy setting around this conference was addressing those open and lingering concerns regarding compensation. Now, I just noticed a comment that popped up from a viewer about, I thought this had to do with appraisers. It's about realtors, ? Have a nice day. Stephen, I would encourage you to stay tuned if you haven't already closed out, because we're going to be bringing this back around. This is a blended room. There's brokers and agents in this room as well as appraisers. It is actually marketed to both, for the reason is this is the collision point between brokers and agents and the appraisers. So trust me, stick around. We're going to connect those dots for you.
Give us about 30 more seconds and we'll have it. We'll be right back around to where you want to be, Stephen.
So out of those policy changes, a lot of that is focused on compensation, disclosure of compensation, and the like. Now, what does that mean going forward, and why does that matter? Now, do you want the cynical, this is Craig's view on things? What was the whole tone and tenor of this conference? I'll give it to you. This was a conference about NAR figuring out how to modify and update its standards of practice and policies to transfer liability off the organization and redirect it to other levels.
There it is. There it is.
This is going to impact MLSs. This is going to impact agents in the field at the boots on the ground level. This is going to impact appraisers.
Yeah.
Because this is still all going to impact how compensation and cooperating compensation is disclosed or not, or discussed within listings and closed sales and how they're represented at the MLS level. Now, is this a natural transition point to start talking about what has NAR decided to do with the MLSs? And where does that lead us? This is where it turns from here. So I've rambled a bit on policy changes. Candy, what are we looking at right now for the MLSs? Are there changes afoot?
Oh my goodness. It's okay. Sitting in the conversations as an appraiser, and then sitting in the conversations as association leadership and all of this. MLS, NAR's changing their policy, and it's turning it over to the locals to decide whether you have to be a member of NAR to access the database, the MLS. And the conversations were pretty darn ugly sometimes. Pretty darn ugly. So for those of you who are appraisers out there, you might not have to join NAR anymore, which is my fee this year is $630. Okay. And the thing is the MLS going to charge a higher non-member fee, which is what has been indicated to me that we might be seeing that happen. So are you really saving money? NAR has a fantastic library that I use for research. They have librarians you can call. They have access to white papers. They have all of this stuff. And then tongue in cheek, I rent cars because I travel a lot. And the amount I save on rental cars because of my membership as a realtor more than pays for my dues. So yeah. So we are looking at all of these pieces of how this is going to go. Is an appraiser going to have to be a member? Are we going to have to be a member? And here's the thing: who is going to police these MLSs? Who's going to make sure that we're still getting accurate data out of these? Okay.
Right. I think that's the concern here. So to that level, backing up to the idea of policy changes or policy recommendations, but the expectation is that these are all going to move forward rather quickly. There were 18 policy amendment proposals introduced regarding the MLS policy handbook. 18 changes to the MLS handbook. And the biggest one, I think the one that's most likely to send shockwaves first, is to repeal the policy statement that requires association membership for access. So I saw somebody in the chat mention, I think it's in response to your question, Candy, do we have to be a member? And Lily says, yes, we do. Otherwise, we cannot be a member of Texas Realtors. That's absolutely correct. That's going to stay the same.
Right.
However, that's a different question in that the value prop of being a member of your local area association or Texas Realtors or NAR, by virtue of that bottom-up model, you pay dues to one, you're in all. What is the value prop if that is now detached from access to the MLS data? Are you going to lose appraiser members as a result? Appraisers who are only paying in to get access to that data? I think surely you will. Are you going to lose access to agents who are presently realtors, but they don't find any other value in being able to put that pin on other than having access to MLS data? Well, and there's also a lockbox question, but I'm going to keep that off to the side for a minute. When it comes to the access to data, is that worthwhile for folks to keep paying their member dues and being a member of all of those organizations in the tower? Or are some folks going to drop out of that? Well, yeah, I think yes on the agent side of that too. Some people are going to try to go and do it without, and we'll see what that does, but the market's going to tell us, right?
I think it's a wild ride, and I think everybody, I don't care which branch of real estate you're in, I think we all need to be paying attention. And I know my state requires us to be competent. I'm sure that the other 49 states say the same thing. And here's the thing: how can you be competent if you don't understand the market, the things going on out there, all of the different pieces that are put together? So
no, that's exactly right. And look, I will tell you, I fall on the side of the line that I think membership interest in all of these organizations comes with a value, and that's separate and distinct from the value being any one thing. Look, I am a member of, at local, state, and national levels, I'm a member of 5 realtor organizations and 8 appraiser coalitions, and I am neither an agent, a broker, nor an appraiser. I'm just a lawyer that deals with all of these people. I get tremendous value out of being a member of all of these organizations because it presents information, knowledge to me that I wouldn't necessarily always come across on my own otherwise.
Right.
I do not have MLS access. I do not need MLS access. It's never been about that for me. There are plenty of other folks out there that would disagree and would say the only reason I do this is to get access to that data. So if there's another way to do that, you better believe that some people are going to try it. And we will find out in the coming months and years what the implications of all of that are, whether that's good or bad. I'm a sucker for knowing who's controlling your data and how it's being controlled. And I mean that on all levels. Again, whether you're an agent or a broker or whether you're an appraiser, you also have to have faith that whoever is holding on to and managing your information is doing so in a competent way.
Yep.
I have heartburn and hesitation about some smaller MLSs because some of their policies are less rigorous and sometimes a little bit loose and fast because they're a smaller org and they don't have the bandwidth to have this big restrictive top-down approach or anything. But we've seen on the appraiser side, we've seen data access, we've seen inaccuracies in data come back to potentially bite an appraiser until we identified that the root cause of the problem was that the data wasn't managed properly at the MLS level and the access point. And then we were able to at least clear the appraiser, saying, well, the appraiser did everything reasonable here and really didn't do anything wrong. It was the platform, the system that failed the appraiser here because this was information that was available but was not presented to the appraiser like it was supposed to be. So we can't expect that the appraiser would have known that. I have even more concerns about that when we don't know who's coming in and out the door.
Okay, so I'm going to do something, I'm going to bounce between two things. We didn't even mention it at the beginning of this, but we talked about not being a member and all of these things. And then we talked about property data collectors. The appraisal side is upset about these people who aren't licensed wandering in and out of houses and doing things. Who's going to police the non-members who are accessing MLS? Yes, they have a license, but geez, there's, part of our safeguards that are in place are our guardrails, our code of ethics, all of these things. You're going to behave this way. You're going to do this. And we're taking away the big umbrella and we're giving us little parasols and hope that it protects us going forward. So hopefully it'll work. Hopefully it's all of these pieces are going to fit together.
Well, and again, we're going to find out. Now, how does that flow into the rest of the conversation about appraisal reporting, UAD 3.6? Look, everything that you need to know about UAD 3.6, in my mind, can be boiled down to one thing: data.
Data.
Right?
Absolutely.
It's about obtaining, verifying, and analyzing data. That's it. Full stop. Gone are the days when you've got an old static report that you're going to have to try and go grab data that's not really relevant to the assignment you're working on because there's a box and I got to put something in it. Or, I got the data. I filled that box. I don't have to think any more about this. I just went out and grabbed it and threw it in there. It's fine. Now, folks, are you seeing how all of this stuff flows together? We are at the point where the sorts of data, the verification, the credibility of the data is at a higher premium than it ever has been. And we're loosening the standards around the repositories of that data at the exact same time. So let's dive into some of the UAD 3.6 issues here. You and I sat in a panel discussion. We did not sit on the panel.
No.
God almighty, I was not on this one for once.
We were the audience.
We were. You, for reasons that I don't know, had started the afternoon sitting nearer the front of the room. I think you wisely chose to come sit in the back by me after this got rolling for a while. But let's start with that. So the perspective of having been in the front of the room to watch the panel, and then your move to the back of the room to watch the panel. What was your first observation when your perspective changed from the front to the back of the room?
Disengagement. We started in, and Craig, it's my mantra. We got to bridge this gap. bridge and help everybody to understand. Appraisers are, I mean, we're being slapped in the face with this software coming out. Okay. But we're so split apart that we need to help the agents and brokers understand how brutal this new reporting is going to be, this dynamic report that comes out, and they're going to ask so many more questions than we used to. And I think we have to get down, and maybe people will be mad at me on this, but I think we got to get down off the panel, and we got to be down on the ground talking to each other and explaining.
I think that's my big takeaway as well. I continue to exist in the space where I'm going, look, nothing is stopping this train now. It has already left the station, and nobody is ready for that. But particularly, one of the things that I think we looked at is, and to your point, the questions that appraisers are going to have to ask to complete the reporting. There are more questions, and there are different questions than what mattered 20 years ago, the last time we revamped this thing. I mean, part of it is we don't have to wait 25 years anymore, or 20 years, to change what the document looks like. It's a lot easier to try to figure out what really matters in the in the market and amongst the underwriting set, the collateral risk set, and we can modify it much more quickly. But it means there's going to be a lot more questions asked, and there's going to need to be cooperation on the part of the agents and brokers to help the appraisers answer those questions. Some of that is going to be driven by, let's turn this into an MLS point for a second. There are things that the appraisers are going to have to know that can be data included in MLS listings and closed sales. Somebody's just asking now for examples of new questions. Yeah, green features is going to be a big deal about this. Believe it or not, folks, you're going to need to know how much, or not how much, you're going to need to know whether or not the property in question has broadband access. People go, goodness gracious, how do we find that out? Well, everybody keeps touting, well, there's a website and you just go to it. Or, however, perhaps Pierce thinks, yep, it's the HERS rating. Questions of whether or not the MLS access can add a dialog box for listing agents who already know and can ask that question when vetting their seller, and can upload that information as a just checkbox in the MLS that helps the appraiser answer that question so that the assignment can be completed more quickly. The conversation that's been surrounding this for the last year or two are, well, does that mean, I mean, from the appraiser side, I still can't believe I'm hearing this, but I am, oh, does that mean I have to call the agent every time that I do? Yes, but that's not new. That's always been true. You have to verify the data somehow. That's typically your best approach. But from the broker and agent side, well, does that mean I have to always call all these folks back and answer all those questions? Then I would say the conversation on that turned from, well, yes, it would be helpful and it would be really nice if you did that because it smooths the process, to it's no longer that. Now it's, well, if you want this deal to get done, you do. It's no longer a permissive, like, oh, gee, gosh, that would be swell. Like, yeah, you'd better if you're representing your client's best interests.
All right. So we have a bunch of stuff going through, and Matthew, I know exactly who it is. He's working hard, and I think I've voluntold him a few times. And he said, you got to get involved with your MLS. So I saw one comment, and Diana Kay said, you know, put the information about concessions in on your listing sheets. A lot of times agents don't understand why we need to look at that. And by having a voice at the MLS and having a conversation and explaining things, all of a sudden the light bulb goes on and they're like, oh, okay, well, it's not a big deal putting that in. It's just something that needs to get done. Now, in Texas, paragraph 12, which is the compensation, talks about compensation and concessions, it's made everybody topsy-turvy. I mean, it just is nuts. So we need to, take a deep breath and not get all bent out of shape about all the changes and just start working our way through and figuring out how to make it so we can all work together.
I want to double down on that, though, too, what you just said there. I think there is a huge benefit to the agents and brokers and the appraisers who are association members, realtors, and presently have access to those MLSs to also be vocal to those MLSs about, hey, this is information we need. And not just, I need this, put it on there. But hey, this is what's happening. This is what's changed. We need to be able to access this so that we can do our jobs accurately and appropriately. Can you include things like this? And I'm not going to tell you that this is going to happen in every instance at every MLS. It's not. I already know that. But I have heard from various MLS boards a receptiveness to that information. They go, in some cases, they're throwing darts. We think we're putting in there what the agents need for the most part, because it's primarily a marketing tool. But at that point, if they understand that their transactions are going to be threatened because their lending applications are going to die because of a lack of access to data, it might go ahead and wisen them up a little bit to the idea of, oh, hey, this is important too. And so I think there is a huge benefit to folks getting involved at those levels. And now it looks like it's going to be more directed down at nearer ground level at the individual MLSs. That's part of what's coming from all of this. But getting there and getting vocal about that, I think, is going to be of great importance in this, because the MLSs, just like everyone else, the MLSs are not ready for UAD 3.6. This is not their problem. It's not on their radar. They're trying to avoid being in a courtroom right now. They are not worried about what Fannie and Freddie want yet. They will be when it's disruptive to them. And does anybody here know when UAD 3.6 happens? Well, apparently this week, because we are hearing that the first report has now been completed. So it's here. And now it's going to start. We're going to be finding the bugs as of now. It's an issue at this point as of now. It already was, but we're here. The future is now. The reports are rolling out. The lenders have to make sense of it. There's as of last update, currently at least two software providers approved so far. The first rollout assignments are being ordered. They're in that test phase, but they're here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to start impacting the marketplace. I know Diana had a comment there that UAD is not required yet. Correct. It is not required yet, but it's here because they're now starting to roll out those orders. We've got about a year's worth of time to work out the kinks before we roll onto and fully transition to that point. And so this next 12 to 18 months is likely going to be very bumpy. The first 4, 6, 8, 10 appraisal reports, or appraisals, I can't call it a report anymore. It's a format. It's not a report. Yeah. Even though USPAP tells me it's an appraisal report. The first 8, 10 assignments completed by the appraiser are probably going to be clunky. It's going to take the appraiser longer, and they're going to have more questions. And so the agents that are out there facing this are probably going to receive more questions. They're going to be weird questions. And that's the lay of the land for now. More and more of these are going to come online over the coming months, and it's going to start here as a slow trickle, and it's going to roll up another level of, month by month, quarter by quarter, we're going to see some more of those. And the comments are flying in quite fast at this point.
Now they're running. When we talk about all of this, I'm seeing the usual butting of heads and pointing of fingers. All I can say is we need to work together, because appraisers need to have the data, good data, out of MLS. So often the appraisers for years have not talked to the agents, and the agents haven't talked to the appraisers. And I spend hours teaching people on both sides what's going on. And I think we've just lost sight of the fact. Agents can't earn their compensation without the appraisers helping getting the deals closed. But appraisers don't have deals to work on if the agents aren't working. We're all in this together. We need to work together. We need to talk to each other. We need to understand that we can't exist without the other guy. And speaking up and volunteering for the MLS and explaining why we need these things is so important. So absolutely over the top. And our world is changing. Guys, technology is cutting all of us out. We have all of these pieces coming together, and we need to figure out how to take care of it. This new report, new whatever it is, I'm blown away with it. And I'm not intimidated by it. I don't do a whole lot of field work anymore. But what I see is that once we get used to it, we're going to click down through. We're going to know where to go get the information. We're going to have service providers who realize, we can sell this service and sell this service to give the appraisers the information they need. So let's work on it.
No, I wholeheartedly agree with you on that one. I do want to comment. I just saw something pop up in the Q&A, and it is a question from about a half hour ago. Sorry, I apologize for being way late getting to that one. Ruth, I am not going to publish the question because it asks things in a manner. It's a compensation question. It's using numbers, and so I'll get out ahead of it and say we're not going to be violating antitrust laws here today by talking about specific compensation figures and all that fun stuff. I'm not going to read you the whole paragraph. You all have already heard it by now. But Ruth's question is, so if I have 3 bananas in a buyer rep agreement and a builder is offering an extra banana, can I not take the extra banana? I appreciate you asking that question, because honestly, every time I talk about this, it's a question that comes up at some level. I was at a breakfast this morning with a bunch of commercial lenders, commercial brokers, title agents, and the like. And there was a developer in the room who was absolutely flabbergasted that there has been change to the various transactional documents and buyer's reps agreements and all of that. And then the argument started, well, this only matters for residential people. And that's not always true in all cases. I live in Illinois. August 17th of last year was when residential agents had to enact their compliance with the terms of the NAR class action settlement. January 1st of 2025 was when every licensed broker in the state of Illinois had to comply with those same standards because they adopted it and incorporated it into license law. Your mileage may vary depending upon what state you're in, but in any number of circumstances, these fundamental changes to the residential side have been overlaid onto everybody who practices in the space at any level. And so to answer that question per the terms of the settlement agreement, and as may be applicable to you in your state license law as well, depending upon your state and whether or not your state has also adopted those requirements, yes, you may not take the extra banana unless You go ahead and get a written approval from your client modifying the terms you initially agreed to about the maximum extent of your compensation, and they allow it. If not, you cannot get that extra compensation. So that's something to have an ongoing conversation with your clients about. You are a fiduciary to your client. You have a responsibility to act in their best interests at all times and not yours. And so anything that is a term that impacts your benefit will need to have approval by them. Now you look at that and go, well, that doesn't impact them at all. Why should we have to worry about any of that? One, it's a requirement of the settlement terms. In many states now, it's a matter of license law as well.
Mm-hmm.
And what if that extra banana that you can get from the builder is a banana that could come off the sales price and benefit your buyer? That suggests that maybe there's a conflict of interest here by you receiving that extra banana. Who is that really coming from? At the end of the day, it's coming from the buyer's proceeds. I am sure the builder, out of the goodness of their heart, is not deciding, wow, I just want to pay everybody even more money and net less on my own end. So as a result of that, the concern here is, hey, that's okay as long as your client says it's okay. And that all needs to be in written documentation, or you can't do it. So hopefully that addressed that one. And I apologize. That was a question you asked at like 11:15. And I'm just getting to it now. But in any event, that was a great question. And I appreciate you bringing that one up. All right.
I want to say something right there.
I'll allow it.
Because we all act like we're... Leave me alone, Craig. We talk about all of these things and we complain about the lawsuit. Guys, do you really think that we didn't have people out there who were cheating their clients, taking that builder's bonus and not explaining it to their clients and telling them what's going on? Most of us do our jobs the right way. I stand up to a higher bar, but I feel like we've had people who have cut the corners in, hey, let's get over it. Let's, instead of griping about it, let's go forward and make sure we disclose, we tell people what are going on. We explain this compensation over and over again. Because Craig, you just said it. The money comes out of the buyer's proceeds.
Absolutely. I mean, look, I am aware of circumstances, and I'm not saying that these changes have influenced this at all, or they've influenced. They haven't put a stop to this. Right. I'm aware of plenty of instances where all of this is coming out of the listing agreement. 6 bananas is what we're going to agree to on the list side. Okay, that's fine. 3 to the list side, three as co-op comp to the buy side agent. Buyer comes in and goes, oh yeah, let's get out on this. Do we have any cooperation on all this? Absolutely. I give you 1 whole banana for bringing me this buyer to the table. Now you've got a seller who's pocketing less because they're given 6 to their list regardless, with the understanding, maybe it's not reduced to writing, maybe they don't know the whole agreement. So, all right, 6, and you're going to divide it up your side and their side. So I want to make sure you both get paid. So I'm going to agree to give you this higher number so that you can induce them to enter this transaction. Let's get this thing across the finish line. Thanks for doing that. Awesome. And list agent goes, I wasn't really able to drive them a whole lot more. So I got this point and a half, banana and a half for you, but we really appreciate you. This is great, but we've hit our bottom on this one. It's the best we can do. So that's just got to come out of somewhere else. Sorry, can't help you. Did we have things like that happening? Absolutely. Do we still have things like that happening? Probably, but the penalty is a whole heck of a lot more severe now if somebody finds out about it, because everything is supposed to have a paper trail. Does that do something? Does it hit the bottom line? Does that hit the net proceeds of the seller? Sure it does. Everything does. At the end of the day, if we've got 5 houses in 5 different states and all 5 of those houses sell for $250,000, all 5 of those sellers walk away from the table with a different amount of money. That's always been the case. There's myriad factors in what actually impacts the net proceeds to the seller. But anything as a fiduciary is supposed to be to the benefit of the party that's being represented. And if that is to the benefit of the agent, the representative, and not to the benefit of the party, it becomes a conflict. It's a problem. And anybody better get this stuff down and in writing so that there's no misunderstanding about what's going on. But take it the other side of this. Okay, we've talked about how this impacts the seller's net proceeds. Does this impact the buyer side? Of course it does.
Yes.
It impacts the amount of money they have to bring to the table. It's the purchasing power question. If the buyer has to pay more for the property to cover this, if the buyer has to pay more to their own agent because that agent's not getting it anywhere else, it impacts the purchasing power of that buyer. Folks, are we going to see all of this? First of all, we've added complexity into the mix. We are now making deals harder to close because we've got to have this paper trail and this back and forth about compensation and everything else. Are we going to see this hit property values because it hits sales prices at some point? I don't know that we know that yet, but deep down inside, I think, yes, we probably will, because we're impacting purchasing power. Just when the sellers thought, okay, great, I've got some clarity, I can keep more of this at home and in my pocket, we're going to be in an area where we're also crunching, to some extent, the purchasing power of our buyers. Now this is going to trickle down, and it's going to be influencing the activities of buyers and sellers in a market transaction at arm's length. Does that matter to all of the appraisers who are watching this? Of course it does, because you're going to see that now start to appear in the sales trends in this neighborhood, in this market segment, and the like. All of these things are interrelated. We can't get away from that. And so at a certain point here, what NAR does in terms of MLS policy absolutely matters to the appraisers in the room. What appraisers have to do to satisfy the scope of work requirements of the GSEs absolutely impacts what the agents and brokers have to do to ensure a successful transaction for their clients whose interests they must reflect and preserve. We cannot continue to operate as two wholly separate pieces of the process. You cannot remove the interactivity of the brokers and agents and the appraisers. And so my charge to all of you who are watching this, and for those of you who were on our last one and are here again, I think you're going to start hearing that we're maybe beating the horse a little bit here. It's already laying on the ground, and maybe it's just kind of lightly puffing at this point. Might not be dead yet, but it's real close. We have to inform others because they are not aware. And in some cases, look, they don't want to be aware. Okay. You all are in this room right now because you want to know more, because you care, because you're interested in hearing about this, figuring out what it means for you and how it impacts your practice. That's awesome. You folks are not the ones I'm worried about. It's the millions of you that are not in this room right now or in any of the other rooms where this is being discussed. They're not going to know why it matters or how it matters. What we need to do is we need to continue pushing this information out and educating people, because all of this matters in order for the process to work right and make sure that these transactions are smooth and effective and accurate at both the valuation side, the lending side, and the purchase and sale side. Was that enough of a rant for you?
Yes. Yes. So, and everybody's responding in our chat. You guys were really quiet in the beginning. I was beginning to think nobody was here, but
we were just that boring at the beginning, and that's okay.
I know, Craig, we got to work on this a little bit better. The thing is we have all of these new pieces coming together. Okay. And we're trying to get everybody on board with what changes are coming. And everybody hates change. If we haven't had an indication of it, watch it over the last year with the forms changing and the policies changing and all the way we've done business. Well, why can't we do that? I've been doing it for the last 40 years. We just need to go, forward and figure out how we're going to make it work together. And I love the fact that everybody's posting in here, and I understand the pain points. To tell you guys, my husband said if I hadn't stopped appraising full time, he was going to divorce me. Now, I think that's a pretty harsh statement, but he said I was so stressed all the time, it was over the top. And I think everybody's that way now. I think we're all treading on eggshells, trying to figure out how to make this work.
So I just saw a question come in from Cindy.
Yes.
We have an appraisal company coming to our office for a panel discussion. What do you think is the best questions to be asking right now? And immediately after that, Kathy, who was in the room with us this past week and knows the answers to these, is really exactly on the right track there immediately, which is ask what data they need and how you can help. I'll go one step further. And it's actually one step simpler. Kathy's exactly right. So just so you all folks know, well, I'm going to out her here, but Kathy is very involved as a realtor, both broker and appraiser. And so very active at local, state, and national levels in both disciplines. Okay. So here's somebody who's in the room all the time, hearing the same things we're hearing, being a part of the discussion. First of all, do that. Get involved, be in the room at all of these things. But to the question that Cindy asked, which Kathy's exactly on the right track with the answer, the question, what should we be asking right now, is to turn that back on the appraisers who are coming to talk to you. It's exactly how I like to walk into a room full of people that I haven't met before. And I go, what do you need?
Yeah,
ask the appraisers what information, what do you need from us, the agents and brokers? What can we provide for you that makes your job easier? Ask the appraisers, do they have a borrower and agent packet that they can supply upon arriving at the house, at the subject property, with, hey, can you fill out these forms? Can you get me this information? Or better yet, send it to you 24, 36, 72 hours in advance and go, if you could fill this out and collect this info for me and hand it to me when I get there, that would be great. A number of appraisers out there have a packet like that produced and don't always know who to hand it to. I was absolutely go, Candy, do you have any suggestions?
I absolutely have a list. You guys know that. I have it on Cooke Real Estate on Facebook. It's been in magazines. It's been all over the place. Get this information out there. Let everybody know what we're doing.
And appraisers, you'd better be revamping your old packet to make sure that it's still asking questions that you need answers to. And if there are new questions that you're going to need answered, maybe incorporate that in as well, starting now, so you can start getting agents and borrowers. If it's a refi, start getting agents and borrowers and whoever your contact is at the subject, start getting them used to the questions they're going to be receiving.
I'm typing. You have to talk.
I can do that. Are you typing in response to the question of where can we get this
Yes,
list?
I'm saying check out Cooke Real Estate. Hang on. I can't type.
So we are kind of running up against the hour. I'm in no great rush to hop off, but I know people are going to have to go do other things, so we can let this overflow for a minute. One of the items that we haven't really checked on just yet is the property data accuracy and the like. We only really briefly touched on property data collection and then the idea of accuracy in general. one of the items that always comes up as a question is what is important, what matters, and how much does the accuracy of the data matter. That's true of the appraisers and the physical observations and measurements they're taking. That's absolutely going to be true of in circumstances where there's property data collectors being used, the accuracy and veracity of their data. But folks, the other part here is for the agents in the room. The information that's input into these MLSs really does need to be accurate. And this is the part where every appraiser in the room runs to the chat box and says, nobody is enforcing the accuracy or the inaccuracies in all of the listings and all of the closed sales that we look at. And I agree. I don't see that at all on the enforcement end. However, recently, I'm talking about in the last year and probably even more closely in the last 6 months or so, I have started to hear rumblings at the national level attending these sorts of events like NXT last weekend, like the annual legislative conference that takes place in DC. What is it, usually May, June, whenever that is at the NAR level. I'm hearing rumblings of folks who are raising that issue up on the flagpole going, hey, the inputting of data, NAR Code of Ethics requires realtors to be inputting accurate information and to not be misrepresenting information regarding the properties that they're working on. And I have seen in ethics panel complaints misrepresentation of the condition of properties. I have seen that come up and litigated and argued in arbitration and mediations under the Code of Ethics for NAR at state and local board levels. People are starting to pay attention to this. For you, the appraisers, and for you, the agents and brokers out there that have access at the local board level and to the MLSs, start getting loud about the necessity of ensuring that the data input is accurate and usable for folks. And I'll tell you what, if NAR membership, which means local area association membership and the like, is not going to be a requirement of MLS access anymore, then this is going to be an item that has to be brought directly to the MLSs and brought to their attention saying, if you all don't have accurate information on this, when something goes wrong here, the liability is going to be pointed at you because you are 100% in control of this now and not subject to the policies of some other national body. This whole thing was a liability shift, and they're going to be very sensitive at this point to those liabilities. So as a result, it's going to be important to raise those issues at the MLS level to ensure that that accuracy is being enforced.
Oh, there's $1 million question, and I'm going to make it our last one. It says, with NAR pulling back on their responsibilities, do you feel state agencies will step up to help ensure data collection and reporting is accurate?
The short answer is I don't know. And the reason I say that is because that's very much a state-by-state problem. I see this in license board complaints for real estate brokers and agents and also for appraisers. The same alleged violation in one state absolutely does not get the same treatment in another state. And it has very much to do with what are the priorities of that regulatory body, the individuals making up the board at any given time, or whatever the case may be. So consistency of enforcement across the licensing agencies and the regulators is a big deal too. This is another one of those things that when Candy and I are attending these national conferences and the like, there's always a harmonization council and all this other crap that's supposed to be helping promote that. And the short answer is it's hard. Not everybody sees everything the same. Not everyone is funded and staffed the same. So we cannot promise you and wouldn't begin to promise you that all of the states are going to get on board with something. Will some of them?
Maybe.
Probably. Will others? Probably not. And so we're going to see some disparities there. I don't really have any good answers for that one, but that would be my expectation.
Yeah. Well, okay, we're over. We talked way too much as usual. So thank you everybody for being here. This was awesome. I think we could talk all afternoon.
And we have before. It's
we
been
have.
done.
Well, I was going to say we do this. If you ever see us out in public, let us know. You know, walk up to us, talk to us, ask us questions. I'm active on that Facebook group. You guys can reach me that way. I'm here to do whatever I can for our whole industry. I really am. I'm a little passionate about this. So.
And you can recognize Candy by nominating her for a Buzzy Award as well. I just posted that. So.
And I would suggest I have a homework assignment for the folks that are on right now, which is please reach out to our hosts, reach out to Candy, let us know what you want to hear from us, because this is a continuing series of these events. We're going to continue. I think we're still trying to figure out what the regular schedule is going to be. I know we had one last month and then jammed this one together because NXT was last week.
Right.
Let us know what information is valuable to you, what you all want to hear about, so that we can put together good, rewarding discussions for you all going forward. We know what we can talk about, but we would love to hear from you what you all want to hear about. So please reach out, let us know that, and we look forward to doing these again for you in the future.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all for attending. We appreciate it. And again, please let us know that that this was valuable to you and what you want to hear about going forward. Thanks much, everybody.
Thank you. That was good.
I like it. I think it was well attended and some fantastic questions.